Water has a memory. It remembers every footprint that ever touched the riverbank. It remembers every prayer whispered into foam. And in Yoruba mythology, water also remembers a mother, so vast, so enduring, that her children cannot be counted. Her name is Yemoja. Some call her the River Mother. Others know her as a Sea Queen. But in every telling, she is something older than fear and stronger than grief. The power that gives life, and the power that protects it. Before we begin, one important note. Now, here's what we're doing today. We're meeting Yemoja, who she is, what her name reveals, why she's tied to rivers in Yoruba tradition, and how her identity travels across the Atlantic, where many people come to know her as Yemanja or Yemayá, shining and immense, crowned by the sea. This is a story about water. But it's also a story about motherhood, protection, and survival. Let's step to the river's edge. Yemoja, often spelled Yemoja, is one of the great Orishas of Yoruba spiritual tradition. If you imagine the Orishas as forces of the world made personal, then Yemoja is water made maternal, nurturing, sheltering, guiding, and, when she must, unyielding. She is associated with motherhood in a way that isn't sentimental, not motherhood as a soft word. Motherhood as a cosmic function, the power that births life, shapes it, and defends it. And that's the first thing to understand about Yemoja. She isn't only gentle. She is not only calm river light. She is the current beneath the surface, the undertow that decides what stays afloat. To some, Yemoja is primarily a river presence, linked to flowing fresh water, to the life that gathers around it. To others, especially in the Yoruba diaspora, she becomes oceanic, saltwater vastness, a queen of waves. River or sea, her role remains recognizable. A mother, a protector, a guardian of life's first home, water. Yemoja's name carries a whole worldview inside it. You will often hear it explained as, mother whose children are fish. And that single phrase is a universe. Because fish are countless. They move in schools like living stars beneath the surface. You can't hold them all. You can't name them all. You can't even see the full number at once. So when Yemoja is called the mother of fish children, it suggests a motherhood beyond the household, beyond one family, beyond one village, beyond even one generation. It is motherhood as abundance, motherhood as continuity. And it also suggests something deeper. Fish live in water the way we live in air. Water is their world, their shelter, their road, their cradle. So to say Yemoja's children are fish is also to say her children belong to her element. They are born into her embrace. They are sustained by her presence. Yemoja is not simply near life. She is the environment that allows life to exist. Now, if that sounds like a creation story waiting to happen, it is. Stand by a river long enough and you start to notice something strange. It's always moving, but it's never leaving. It's never the same, but it's always itself. You can toss a leaf into the current and watch it disappear. Yet, the river remains, as if it never cared about the loss. That's the kind of power Yemoja represents. Not the power of sudden destruction, but the slow, certain force that shapes everything over time. Water doesn't need to shout. It changes the world by being patient. And a mother like Yemoja doesn't rule by command. She rules by presence. In many Yoruba stories, the world is not created in one single instant like a switch flipped in the dark. Instead, the world becomes, through divine intention, sacred labor, and the ordering of forces. Yemoja appears in this mythic landscape as a great maternal power, connected to the making ready of the world and the sustaining of life within it. In some traditions, you will find stories where Orishas descend from the spiritual realm to shape the world into a place where humans can live. And within those currents of story, Yemoja is often associated with the support of creation, linked to the processes that make life possible. Sometimes she is described as connected with Obatala's work, Obatala being an Orisha deeply tied to the forming of human beings in many Yoruba narratives. And whether a given telling places Yemoja at the center of that moment or just beside it, her presence always makes sense. Because where do bodies begin? Where does life grow? In fluid, in water, in the first home we ever know, before breath, before footsteps, before names. Yemoja is the mythic echo of that truth, the mother force behind beginnings. But creation stories are not only about gentleness, because if water can sustain life, it can also become a boundary, a warning, a defense. And that is where Yemoja's fierceness enters the mythic horizon. There's a mistake people often make when they hear Mother Goddess or Mother Spirit. They imagine endless comfort, endless forgiveness, a soft voice. But mythic mothers are rarely that simple. In some tellings, Yemoja is connected to a moment of overwhelming waters, an image of a mother so immense that her power spills beyond containment. The symbolism is potent, water breaking, flooding, spreading into the land. And you can read that in more than one way. One way is as origin. The mother's waters become the world's veins, rivers and streams, flowing outward like life traveling beyond the womb. Another way is as warning. Do not forget what you owe the waters. Do not insult the mother force. Do not harm what she protects. Because water will not negotiate forever. It will nourish you, and it will also take back what is disrespected. This is the reality of rivers. The same river that feeds crops can rise and swallow roads. The same water that cleans can also erase. And in Yemoja, that dual nature becomes divine personality. She is mercy, and she is consequence. She is the lullaby, and she is the wave that slams a door. Not because she is cruel, but because she is real. A mother does not only give. A mother also guards. Here's where things get fascinating. In Yoruba homelands, Yemoja is often connected to rivers, fresh water, flowing inland, feeding communities. But across the Atlantic, many people come to know her primarily as oceanic. How does a river become a sea? Part of the answer is simple. Diaspora changes the map. When peoples and traditions were carried across the ocean through history's brutal migrations, especially through the transatlantic slave trade, spiritual memory had to survive in new landscapes. Different rivers, different coastlines, different languages, different pressures, and sometimes the symbolism expands. A river mother becomes a sea mother because the sea was the vast presence that stood between worlds, between homelands and new shores. So Yemoja remains Yemoja, but the water around her becomes wider. And her story becomes, in a way, a story of survival. The mother who crosses impossible distance and still arrives. When Yemoja moves through the Yoruba diaspora, especially in places like Brazil and Cuba, you'll often hear her name as Yemanja or Yemayá. And here, the ocean is not just scenery. The ocean is identity. She becomes the mother of the sea's endless horizon, a queen whose domain is not a single river's path, but the rolling boundary between worlds. In many diaspora communities, devotion to Yemoja takes on vibrant public expressions: music, offerings, ritual gatherings, acts of love carried to the shoreline. And even if the details differ from one tradition to another, the emotional core often remains consistent. People come to her for protection, for healing, for family, for fertility, for the strength to endure. Because an ocean mother is not only about birth, she is about what comes after birth, the storm you survive, the grief you outlast, the life you rebuild when the tide tries to pull it away. In some contexts, her image merges through complex histories, with figures like the Virgin Mary, not as a replacement, but as a bridge, a way devotion could continue under changing names and social realities. And what emerges is not a single new goddess, but a living tradition adapting while staying rooted. Water remains sacred. Motherhood remains powerful. Protection remains the prayer. Picture this. It's early, before the sun is fully awake. The sky is pale, and the air smells like salt. People gather near the water carrying flowers, candles, small offerings. Each one a message shaped by human hands. Some are joyful. Some are desperate. Some are thankful in a way that can't be spoken out loud. And then the moment comes. They step toward the waves and give. Not because the sea needs anything, but because giving is how humans speak to what is larger than them. The ocean takes the offerings the way it takes everything, without hurry, without explanation. And in that silence, people feel something they came for. A mother's attention. A mother's presence. Not a promise that life will be easy, but the sense that they are not alone in it. It's easy to treat myth like a museum, something behind glass. But Yemoja is not only a story people told, she's a story people live. She represents the sacred logic of water, that life begins in it, depends on it, and returns to it. She also represents the logic of motherhood that is too often misunderstood. Motherhood as strength. Motherhood as protection. Motherhood as the power to carry pain and still keep others alive. And across the Atlantic, her many names and forms tell another story, one that is both mythic and historical. A story of culture surviving displacement. A story of memory refusing to die. A story of a mother who remains, even when the world changes around her. So whether you imagine her beside a river with fresh water flowing through green land, or you imagine her standing in the surf, crowned by foam and moonlight, Yemoja is still the same essential truth. Water is origin. Water is power. And the Mother of Waters is not only kind, she is unstoppable. So that is Yemoja, Mother of Waters. River Mother in Yoruba tradition. Ocean Queen in many diaspora traditions. A protector whose love is as deep as the currents and as fierce as the storm surge. If you want more Yoruba mythology on this channel, tell me which Orisha we should explore next. Oshun, Shango, Okun, Oya, or someone else entirely. And if this story moved you, if it made you feel the river and the sea in a new way, leave a like, subscribe, and join us for the next myth. Until then, listen closely. The water remembers.